Live from Munich, it's Friday night.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Be sure to watch the show every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays, answer your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to get your questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find a qualified candidate you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. I am live with you right now here on YouTube as it is 9:13 p.m. here in Munich, Germany. It has been a very long day for your boy. Been enjoying the last couple of days here in Bavaria. Actually was in Salzburg, Austria yesterday and got caught up in some bowl with a couple of British chaps where I was out a lot later than I expected to be out, and then had to have the train at 9 a.m. this morning, get back, try to sneak in about an hour and a half nap before going over to Panthers practice this afternoon, where we got to catch up with Dave Canales, Chuba Hubbard, who's got that big extension, which we'll talk about here momentarily, but really cool to just be over here and to see the amount of Panther fans that have traveled from the United States, but also those that have traveled throughout Europe. Was able to hang out with Kai and Moritz, who do a Panthers podcast. It was really cool to hang out and talk to those guys over at Augustiner, which is the Panthers bar here in Munich, over the next couple of days, where I know right now the Roaring Riot and a bunch of people are getting after it, and I'm trying to get over there. So got to do this show first, though, to talk to y'all about what's going on Sunday. And it's going to be a little bit different today. Typically on Fridays, I like to do Keys to Victory. Had another plan, but just schedules didn't align with who I wanted to have come on the show, which is totally fine because I already knew what I kind of wanted to talk about. But I'll do it here today, as there's been some newsy items that since I last spoke to y'all live on Tuesday night on the trade deadline, haven't really been able to touch on, like Bryce Young being the starting quarterback with Carolina on Sunday, Chuba Hubbard getting that contract extension, and then a couple of other items that we got to find out today when speaking to Dave Canales following Carolina Panthers practice here in Munich at the Bayern Munich Academy on Friday afternoon. Let's start off, though, talking about this extension for Chuba Hubbard. I was in Salzburg yesterday, just enjoying my day in Austria. First time I've ever been to Austria, and walking up, they have this massive fortress that looks upon the entire city, and it is a hell of a view. Just look up fortress above Salzburg, and you'll get an understanding of what it's like. And they have the Mirabelle Palace, where apparently they did Do Re Mi and The Sound of Music. Have not seen that movie in a long ass time, so I really don't remember that scene, but you can see it from right there in the Palace Gardens all the way looking down on you. When we walked up there, and it was pretty awesome. We're walking up, and then I'm looking at my watch as I have all the alerts from Rappaport and Jonathan Jones and Adam Schefter, and then I see the Carolina Panthers have extended Chuba Hubbard. And I just knew that at some point in time, I was going to be inundated with people saying, "You good, man? Use them, abuse them." Apparently, they're signing them instead. I did chuckle. And I appreciate everyone who watches and listens to the show that understands my stance on running backs is you never pay them. If you're going to pay them at all, you give them federal minimum wage. No overtime. No holiday pay, none of that. You use them, you abuse them, and then you lose them. This is a position in the NFL that has been reduced to you can draft a guy late in the draft and be fine. Like Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, who's right now, he's been out with that broken leg, been one of the better players the last couple of seasons, and they've won 2 Super Bowls. Have they won 2 Super Bowls because of him? No. But he's helped out, and they didn't need to draft a running back in the first round or trade up earlier into the second round after trading back to draft a running back to help this team. You can get a running back who's pretty good in, I don't know, the fourth round, like Chuba Hubbard a couple of years ago. And that kind of goes to the point I've had where Carolina got a pretty good player in the fourth round, thanks to Julia Rule, by the way. All the folks who hated what Matt Rule did in Carolina, which was not very many good things. The one good thing he did, at least here in Carolina, was marry his wife, Julie, all those years ago, as she told them, remember, we were at Baylor and that man was running all over us? Well, he's available, Matt. And you maybe want to get some cover for this McCaffrey guy who was injured last year. Why not go out there? Well, he wasn't injured. I guess he was healthy in 2019. But either way, you might want to get another running back. And why not? Go get him. And well, they signed Chuba Hubbard. He has a fill-in for McCaffrey there in 2020 for a couple of weeks as they try to implement that wide zone running attack. And Chuba was okay. Couldn't really catch the ball. Had some issues there. Tried to do some special teams returning. And he struggled. But the man's worked his tail off. Came back the next season. McCaffrey was still here. Then he gets traded. And you're thinking, all right, here's a chance for Chuba Hubbard again. Instead, it's more Deontay Foreman with Chuba Hubbard. Not Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman. Last year, they spent all that money on Miles Sanders. Hated it. Even though he's coming off of a Super Bowl appearance and a Pro Bowl. And we saw Miles Sanders, it's never been worth the money, but then Chuba takes over, and he's run with that position the last the last year and a half. And I do give him a lot of credit for the way that he's battled and he's gotten to this point in time. And it was nice today, after the podium session, he talked to a small contingent of the Charlotte media just about, because we weren't there on Wednesday when I guess Thursday rather, when they got the news and all that. I guess it was Thursday, but I hadn't talked to Chuba. And it was really cool just to talk to him. And someone asked him about, can you imagine that kid from Canada being in this position? And he's talked about how as a kid, you always, have this irrational belief that all these things are going to happen. All your dreams are going to come true. And his dreams come true by way of a 4-year, $33.2 million contract with a max value of $37.2 million. But really, here's the important number. It's $15 million fully guaranteed. So this is truly a 2-year, $15 million deal the Panthers are going to have to deal with Chuba Hubbard. And I'm guessing the majority of that $15 million is going to be next year in 2025. So for the next 2 seasons after this year, it's going to be Chuba as 1A and Jonathan Brooks as 1B, or Brooks as 1A and Chuba as 1B. It's going to be a 2-back system, and maybe we'll start to see that stubborn running attack that Dave Canales promised us all throughout the offseason. So on principle, do I like the idea of giving a running back this much money? No. But when you consider where this organization's at right now, sitting at 2-7, where they moved on from Deontay Johnson, they moved on from Jonathan Mingo, and Dave Canales is trying to establish a culture here in Carolina. The only culture that matters is actually winning. But coach is going to talk all about culture, and that's going to be the buzzword until they actually start winning, and their culture has been officially built, and you can see it. But as far as how things have gone, Chuba has been on board since day one, and this is a guy who's been with Rule. He's been with Reich. You can even count Steve Wilkes as well as a head coach, considering how he changed the dynamic offensively that had Chuba as a big part of that offense alongside Deontay Foreman when they turned things around that second half of the 2022 season. But he is somebody that has wanted to stay in Carolina. It was about a week or so ago when these contract talks really got going, and he had always been focused on fighting for this team, being a part of this organization and wanting to have success and seeing it through. And you got to respect that. I also would respect if he got to the point where, man, we're bad, and I just don't want to be a part of this. I want to go somewhere else and try to win. He wants to do it here. And as fans of this team, I feel like you should be able to appreciate anyone who wants to stick it out through the tough times and come out on the other side and see the success. And I hope for him, because it's really a gamble, considering how ownership has run this organization to the ground. It's a gamble for Chuba Hubbard. I'm hoping it works out for him. When you look at just the leadership aspect, what Carolina is looking for, and there have been guys in that locker room from conversations I've had who have not been totally bought in, and guys that Canales has not really appreciated what their, I don't know, messaging, but their just standpoint has been, as viewpoint, I guess, is probably a better way to describe it, in that locker room. But Chuba Hubbard's been one of his guys. And one of his guys got paid. Dave is excited. He talked about his great effort, his great enthusiasm, and that is certainly something that we know Dave Canales is all about. Chuba Hubbard gets paid, and honestly, good for him. While I joke about the running backs and minimum wage and all of that, I truly want to see every one of these guys get their money, have success, be happy, be whole, as I tell y'all at the end of all these shows. So congrats to Chuba Hubbard. He gets his money. A quick side note too here. as far as players no longer in Carolina, just as far as moves were made. We know earlier the week, the Cowboys went out there and they traded a 7th-round pick for a 4th-round pick. They traded a 4th-round pick to the Panthers in exchange for a 7th-round pick in Jonathan Mingo. I saw Mingo was on NFL.com, quoted saying it kind of blindsided me because my agent told me he didn't think anything was going to happen. There's a slim chance. So that slim chance happened. I'm happy to be a Cowboy. Fresh start for me. New beginnings. God put me here for a reason. Really surprised. He said he was blindsided, I guess, because his agent told him, yeah, you're probably not getting traded. But then Jared Jones and the Cowboys came out and said, yes, we need you because, well, I don't know what they saw. And I did see John Middlecoff, who does the 3 and Out podcast, which is part of the Volume, which is called Cowherds Network. And I do think he's like really good. John's a really smart guy. He used to be a scout in the NFL, and he comes in from a scouting perspective when evaluating that trade. We talked about the other day. Great job, Dan Morgan. Great job, Carolina. You got a 4th-round pick for a player who's not any good. And Middlecoff talked about how, well, you get a 4th-round pick. That's not crazy. The guy still has 2 more years, and he's someone who showed a little bit of production there as a rookie, and then the contract and all that, which are all astute points. But here's the problem: Mingo can't play. So Carolina, I think, wins that. We'll see down the road if that's the case. But as far as contracts go this week, got 1 contract out the books from Mingo that didn't need him around anymore, and they add one at a position that I don't think you need to necessarily be paying, but a position and a player, more importantly, who can help to turn things around in the future, and is certainly the kind of locker room guy that Dave Canales and his organization should want to keep around. So congratulations, Chuba Hubbard. Congratulations to the Panthers, I suppose, as Chuba is here to stay at least for the next 2 years, possibly the next 4 years. Bryce Young is going to start on Sunday, and that is the correct decision. Happy to see it. Is it only an 8-game tryout, or will they stick with him in the future? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. For most of us who like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Patrick Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com. Now it's possible to score gym mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game of transparency. After your pools are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent with a full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out right now. You can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through HIMS, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. HIMS is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like Chuba Hubbard and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find an ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on product and subscription plan. All right, back here live from my hotel in Munich, as this has been awesome couple of days. You may tell your boy is kind of running on fumes at this point in time, but getting this podcast out to y'all here, 9:26 local time, 3:36 Eastern time. They're back in Charlotte, and I don't know what time it is wherever you are across the world, but really been cool hanging out with people so far who have supported the show, supported me over the last couple of years that would not get to even meet them if it weren't for the NFL sending the Panthers and the Giants here in Munich this Sunday. So very excited about that game on Sunday. Very excited to go out tonight and I got to get a coffee. I don't even drink coffee, y'all. That's the thing. Like yesterday, walking around Salzburg, and saw this like really cool looking coffee shop. Like, let's go ahead and go in there because I'll take a drink, and felt pretty good. Just typically coffee does not sit well with your boy, if you know what I mean. But let's get back to the Panthers and what's going to potentially happen on Sunday. We know one thing's going to happen. Bryce Young is going to start. Went to the Bayern Munich Benfica Champions League match on Wednesday. Was a dream come true as someone who has loved soccer since the 2006 World Cup that was here in Germany to finally make it to a Champions League match. Now, it was not Liverpool, but it was still one of the biggest clubs in the world in Bayern Munich. And I remember I tweeted out to y'all, I'm sure you saw it, Julian Council, Bryce Young will be starting here on Sunday at the Allianz Arena, which is the correct decision. And we talked about this on Tuesday. We talked about this with Patricia Traina before we even knew on the Crossover Thursday episode yesterday, which I recorded when I got here on Tuesday. Unfortunately, did not know the answer. That was probably more gamesmanship. But if he goes back, he being Dave Canales goes back to Andy Dalton, this team clearly was done with Bryce Young. Now, fortunately, he makes the right decision. He being Dave Canales, and Bryce Young is going to start for the third week in a row. And now I am wondering, is this now going to be an 8-game tryout for the remainder of the season? I suppose 10 games. You want to count the games against Denver and New Orleans the last couple of weeks to see whether Bryce Young is going to be the guy next year in 2025. Now, understand this too. When Dave came out there on Wednesday and announced that Bryce Young would be starting, he did not necessarily say that this was going to be for the rest of the years. There is still that opening for Bryce to go back to the bench and for Dave to go back to Andy Dalton. And I keep going back to it, man. I just don't know if he's a fan. And I sit here and I'm having conversations with people just trying to understand, what's the thought process here? And I asked him, do you think they would have gone back to Bryce had he not gotten a car accident? And people tell me, yeah, they think would have happened. But then when? Would it happen this week? Was it going to happen the prior 2 weeks had Andy not been in an accident? Because we sat there and listened to Dave on that Monday, the day before the car accident, and saying that Andy gives him the best chance to win. And anytime he's been asked about Bryce Young, has not wanted to state necessarily the areas where he's improved. He has talked about some things that Bryce has done well in some of these games, but he didn't want to really get into specifics as far as, yeah, this is what he's really done the last couple of weeks that have gotten him to this point where we feel confident in him. Like that, those have been words that he has uttered. And not to mean that he doesn't believe that he has gotten to the point where they have more confidence in him, but he certainly has not shown it and he's not said it, which leads me to just think that I don't think he's a big fan. And you go all the way back to, did we all misread the situation about Dave being a quarterback whisperer up in Seattle of Geno Smith and then down last year in Tampa as a first-time play caller with Baker Mayfield? Did we misread the situation? And you look at, too, that nobody else in the NFL, even Seattle, where he spent all that time, and I understand it's a new ownership group, but John Snyder is still the general manager there. They went and got somebody in Mike McDonald, who I don't believe has any ties to the Seahawks. He's a Jim Harbaugh disciple, having been his DC at Michigan briefly before going to work for his brother John and the Ravens the last, I believe, 2 years, maybe even just a season. I don't think he has. Hey, I don't believe he had ties to Seattle. So it is odd that like the DC here in Carolina, Jerry Rivera, there was interest there from John Snyder and the ownership group in Seattle, and there was no interest in Dave Canales. So that certainly raises an eyebrow, or really both of them, about what exactly is his standing across the league and how people feel. But it doesn't really matter. A lot of people looked at Dan Campbell when he took that job in Detroit and all biting knees and thought this guy is a buffoon. Like there's no way that the Lions are going to have success with him. They're going to be terrible, which they already were. And what do you know? The Lions, in my opinion, are far and away the best team in the NFL. Just look at the point differential. They're blowing teams out of the water. So that may not be important. It's just things I ponder when it comes to these situations. And understand, it's 9 games into a season. Things haven't gone the way he's wanted to go. He's been very coach speaky since making that seismic decision to put Bryce on the bench and to start Andy Dalton, and he's still trying to get them to find who they are. He talks about we got to find us and playing the right way football-wise, having the energy and effort, and trying to get the right personalities in the locker room. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him time. It's just certain situations make me just go, What is going on here? I think, though, that on Sunday and the next 7 games, Bryce Young needs to be the quarterback because they need to evaluate and they really need to have a plan moving forward. And the best case scenario is Bryce continues to build off of what he had last week. We have not seen Bryce Young in his career and those 20 starts so far in Carolina have back-to-back solid performances. We have seen a great performance against Green Bay. To the next week, they did not score against Jacksonville. We have seen solid performances against the Texans and against Atlanta. And the next week, they couldn't do anything in New Orleans and got blown out. We have not seen him stack back-to-back performances on top of each other where he was good, and really need to see that, not just on Sunday, but in the final 7 games after Sunday's contest here in Munich against the Giants. If Bryce is going to have an argument, other than the Panthers gave up a ton to get him to be the quarterback here in 2025. And you would think at minimum, even if he plays well, do you bring in someone as competition, someone younger than Andy, someone who maybe in the right situation, if things don't work out with Bryce, could be the bridge to whatever they're going to build here in the future in Carolina as far as that position. But my hope is, and I think what should happen, is that this is Bryce's team for the final 8 games and would be the final 10 games of the season. And then you reevaluate everything. And I was sitting there talking to a couple, Moritz and Kai. And God, I apologize. I forget the other guy's name who is ahead of the German riot. But I was talking to them just about, situation. And look, it's a week-to-week league. Week 1, week 2, you think Bryce Young's the worst quarterback on the planet. And then you see Andy Dalton come in week 3, things look great. Week 4, still pretty good, even in a losing effort. Week 5, Chicago, it's like, well, here we go again. And Atlanta wasn't that much better, but it was. And then you look at what happened in Washington. It's a week-to-week league. You can't get too high, can't get too low. You got to try to stay even keel. And it's so long this season is. And you can lose a certain amount of games where you can still be in contention of things. And Carolina's gotten to the point where they can't really lose any more games if they want to reach the playoffs, which I think we all know is not going to happen. And I believe also the coaching staff, the players know that's highly unlikely at this point in time. But you got to take it week by week. And I get the whole with Bryce, you don't want to, and Andy doesn't want to make one decision. But at this point in time, you got to take it where Bryce is your guy, but you got to evaluate him week to week and see how he can grow, see where mistakes he makes, and how in these final 8 games and the 2 before, he can figure to be the guy in the future, especially when you have Jatavion Sanders. You got Jalen Coker, you have Xavier Legette, all at receiver and tight end, who could be a part of that future. And then we're adding in potentially Jonathan Brooks to the mix on Sunday in Carolina. So very excited about Bryce's opportunity here in Munich and very interested to see how things play out down the road when it comes to Bryce at quarterback and if he will be the starter after the bye at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Jonathan Brooks may make his debut. Same with DJ Wonnum. Jordan Fuller may come back, and there is a battle. Really 2 that I'm looking at that I think will decide the game on Sunday. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. In fact, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers, and that could be you, can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And looking at this, 6.5? Really, FanDuel? You got really the Giants. They're getting 6.5 points. Okay. The same New York Giants with Daniel Jones, then they might fire their whole coaching staff. Okay, sure. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers. The Panthers are set to face the Giants on Sunday after what I called a newsworthy week. Trade deadline happened, and the Panthers did not move on from Miles Sanders. So I wonder what's his role going to be now that Jonathan Brooks is coming back soon. They did not move on for Jadeveon Clowney, which means that him and DJ Wonnum, the two Gamecocks, can team up on either side of the ball, each on the other, as in each end, and see if they can play meet me at the quarterback. I wonder if that will happen. And Bryce Young's still here. But Jonathan Mingo, no longer here. Before that, Deontay Johnson no longer here. And then Chuba Hubbard gets his contract. Bryce Young is named the starting quarterback. I think a pretty newsworthy week for the Panthers as they get the face off against the Giants. 3:30 local time here in Germany, 9:30 a.m., 6:30 Pacific. Man, West Coast Panther fans, good luck. Maybe it's actually kind of nice to wake up that early. But I'm not going to act like I have not woken up at like 6:30 to watch a soccer team in Liverpool, and there's nothing worse, y'all. And maybe West Coast Panther fans will understand this on Sunday. Hopefully not. But maybe if you're already a soccer fan, you would understand. There's nothing worse than waking up early in the morning and watching your team play at 7 a.m. and then like lose. It ruins your entire So I woke up, I drove to this bar, and I just watched them lose. And I'm like 4 beers deep. Like I feel great vibes-wise, but this is also terrible. Like, well, what the hell do I do the rest of my day? Yeah, that has happened several times. Never will be a worse one than it was a draw, Liverpool, Everton, and Jordan Pickford tears Virgil van Dijk's ACL. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. And it was a draw. Got completely screwed by VAR. But I digress. Let's talk about the Panthers. Jonathan Brooks should debut on Sunday. Asked about it. Dave was being typical Dave and not really wanting to answer the question and saying, yes, he can help us out. We got other things to figure out as far as what we want to do with the numbers and blah, 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 blah. He's going to play. And that means Miles Sanders, well, he already didn't have much use for the Panthers, but he's definitely not going to have much use for the Panthers moving forward. As Jonathan Brooks, if you watch him back at Texas, does a lot of the same things, and he's younger. The Panthers traded up into the second round after trading back to draft Jonathan Brooks, and they paid Chuba. So those are the guys the next 2 years, at least, I guess next 2.5 years, who are going to be the main backs in Carolina. And I'm excited to see what he can provide. And part of the season now, when you look at it at 2-7, where unless they reel off 8 straight wins from here, not going to be a playoff team. What you're looking at, Bryce Young's development, Jonathan Brooks, how he gets integrated into the offense. Defensively, guys like Damani Richardson, who could continue to start on Sunday, make his third start in a week in a row. Jordan Fuller, who was a full participant throughout the week and was as well last week. He could be ready to go off of IR. Has not played since week 3, and he was brought in to be that starter. Nick Scott's on IR right now as well. Not a big loss, as he's not really a great player anyways, but still depth-wise, as far as Jaraveo talked, they had 3 starters at safety, and only one of them has been available over the last couple of weeks, and really all season long, and that being Xavier Woods, who I mean, you guys got to relax. We're going to find out on Saturday how much he got fined for decleating Chris Olave and sending him to the hospital, literally. Thank God Olave was fine. It could actually go back to the stadium and fly back home to New Orleans. But, man, relax. 9 unnecessary references. Maybe at one point you might realize you're not John Lynch. You're not – no, that's not even the best description, honestly. You're not Steve Atwater. Got to relax, dude. Stop doing that. That's not allowed in the rules of the game, and I'm still surprised he didn't get run. But it'd be cool to see some of these younger guys getting in an opportunity. Like, that's hopefully the future. And I've liked so far this draft class. Leggett has shown some promise. Got to catch the ball, but still, we love his voice. He's delightful. Would love to see him be able to make one of those big plays and just run through an NFL secondary at some point in time. Sunday would be a great opportunity to do it, possibly. We get to see Brooks. We've seen Wallace have success early. JT Sanders has bumps and bruises early on, coming along lately. And Cromedy should get an opportunity. Charles Smith-Wade's already out there. He's having his struggles. But They moved on from Troy Hill because I understand this guy's going to be a part of our future. Let's get him out there. So Jonathan Brooks is going to have his debut on Sunday. I still feel like it's going to be 85%, 90 Chuba, and then incorporating Jonathan Brooks. DJ Wonnum, as I mentioned, Jordan Fuller, both of those guys questionable for Sunday. I don't know. I would guess Fuller would be back. It would make a lot of sense for them to be a full participant the last 2 weeks and not be available. And then DJ Wonnum, he told the media, I mean, I was in the locker room at that day, but he said that he felt like he was going to be a couple weeks away. And from that, and just knowing about the blood clot, I felt like, well, I was telling y'all about being able to tell y'all that I didn't even know if he'd play this season, because I hear blood clot. I'm like, oh man, is he going to be able to play football? Because that's certainly secondary to his overall health. But it looks like he's going to play on Sunday, which would be great because the Panthers need to be able to have an answer to what the Giants are going to provide on Sunday, and that's their own pass rush. As looking at this game, the biggest matchups in this game to me are clearly on the offensive line for Carolina versus the defensive line for New York. It's Cade Mays and Brady Christensen versus Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, which hate that we're saying versus Brian Burns, but that's where we're at. Cade Mays is going to start at center for the second week in a row. Graded out really well at PFF. And honestly, every one of these guys that had step up so far this season, I asked Dave about this, just the development of the offensive line, how we've seen Chandler Zavala, who was I don't even think liability is even the apt description, because he was worse than a liability last year for the Panthers when he had to step in there as a rookie, and he wasn't ready. But the situation, unfortunately, needed him to go out there and play, and he has improved. And you also have to look at when Christensen's come in, whether it's been a left tackle or at center. Now, Cade Mays, Yosh Nijman to a little bit lesser extent. There has not been much drop-off. And the fact that the team's been able to go 9 deep when last year some of these guys who were playing were not helpful at all, that says a lot about the development of this offensive line. And Dave had pointed out how got Harold Goodwin and Joe Gilbert and Keeley, who I can't say his last name. He said it, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to repeat that. And then there's another quality control coach, 4 different coaches on the offensive line. And put that many resources into it, I feel like is rare. I asked him, is that something that Pete Carroll did in Seattle? And he said, no, that was not something that they did. But he really liked what Keeley did for him. Back when he was in Seattle, really loved the relationship that he built with Harold Goodwin and Joe Gilbert in just less than a year's time in Tampa for them to want to come with him all the way up here in the division to Carolina. Got to give that guy a lot of credit for what he's been able to build on the offensive line. And it sticks to what he said about wanting to be stubborn about running the ball. Well, one of the biggest part about that is you got to have an offensive line that can road grade. And they got a good offensive line. They've been good at pass protection so far this season, but this is going to be, no, I'm not going to say the ultimate test, but it's going to be a massive test for them, as the Giants are number 1 in the league in sacks. Denver, number 2 in the league. Panthers held up, I think, fairly well against the Broncos that day. Problem was, they set out of an offensive game plan that was conducive to actually scoring points that afternoon, which is wild. You would think they'd try to score, but they weren't really trying to score at all, it felt like. So Cade Mays versus Dexter Lawrence, who is outstanding and probably should eat his lunch. We'll see. Getting some help from Robert Hunt and from Damian Lewis. And there's a reason the Panthers paid those guys a lot of money this offseason, was for days like Sunday against complete monsters like Dexter Lawrence. Brian Burns against Brady Christensen. Burns has seen that matchup, I'm sure, plenty of times. And Christensen's seen that matchup plenty of times. And you got to imagine Brian wants to make the Panthers pay. I know he enjoyed his time in Carolina. Not really any hard feelings. But when a team doesn't want to pay you, doesn't believe you're worth it, you want to go out there and show him you're worth it. And baby, I hope he's not going to show him that he's worth it. So we'll see how it plays out. But that's where the game comes down to. Can Christensen and Mays hold up? If they can't, Panthers can't win this game. D-lines win. Been my thought process on a lot of things football-wise for a while now. But especially at the NFL level, we have seen game wreckers. Reason why TJ Watt gets paid a lot. Reason why guys like Max Crosby, even though he's not on a good team anyways, get paid a lot. Chris Jones, those guys can ruin Sundays. Can ruin select Saturdays, Mondays. Hell, even on Tuesday, randomly in a pandemic, they could ruin it. Don't let the Panthers have that ruined by Dexter Lawrence. Sorry, Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns on Sunday. All right, it's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where I'll be back with you live here on YouTube on Sunday. Going to do it from the stadium. First time ever done it from the facility. Actually, would be a nice test, as I may start doing that at Panther games, depending on other obligations, of course. Can't say no to money, y'all. But we'll see. I'll be doing it live at some point. So hang in there with me. I don't know when I'm going to do it as far as your time, but we'll be doing it at some point from Allianz Arena. So that'd be cool to do. So check it out. That's why you got to subscribe. Follow the show for free here on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, and you'll get all of that. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always, and forever. Keep pounding. And I'll talk to you here on Sunday following the Carolina Panthers win in Munich.